Hello, everyone. My name is Andrew Fritz. I'm a clairvoyant, healer, and meditation teacher. Welcome to the Adventure Within channel. We're a spiritual show and also an online psychic school. And today we have a special guest with us. Her name's Dr. Sharnael Wolverton, and she's a naturopathic doctor, quantum scientist, linguist, and theologian, integrating these disparate wisdoms into one language of miracles. Her scientific approach to miracles has helped countless people remember truth, love, and purpose, and had reset their lives. She has taught and traveled to over 51 countries and uses social media, interviews, podcasts to ignite the masses to alignment of these things. Dr. Sharnael is an accomplished educator, author of 5 books, and entrepreneur. Two of her most recent titles are The Science of Miracles, Remembering the Frequency of Love, and Keto Reset, 31 Days to New Life, as well as a card deck, crystals, oils, and decrees card deck, and has produced numerous teachings on topics of divine science and the human body, including consciousness, epigenetics, quantum health, essential oils, nutrition, frequency, the biofield, juicing, conscious language, dreams and visions, cleansing, detoxing, abundance, and way more. Hi, Dr. Charnel. Welcome to the show.
Well, hello. It's so great to be with you guys today.
Yeah, glad you're here. So I always like to ask my guests kind of just how and when they got into spirituality. That's always something I find fascinating.
Oh gosh, I appreciate the question, and did not grow up in like a spiritual group of or religious anything. Maybe I guess you could say my mom was pretty spiritual, meaning like intuitive, and
Hmm.
she went to psychics, and I
Oh,
remember like going with her to go talk to a nun lady who was intuitive or things like that. So maybe like a soft introduction,
mm,
as far as from the outside. I remember like getting those little horoscopes at the grocery store, like when you were
uh,
waiting, they had all the candy, and there, you could get your little tube to see what you were or whatever. And
cool.
I don't remember why I did. I don't know if someone sat me down and said, you should learn this or know it, or,
Mm,
um, but I had an encounter with who I later found out was Jesus at a very, very young
mm,
thing, age. I want to say 4 or 5 years old on Easter Sunday.
mm,
And, this sort of like hologram thing showed up in my bedroom at my grandmother's house. And I just remember feeling it more than like even understanding maybe what that was. And so
mm,
I always kind of felt like, huh, he's pretty loving, and um, kind of like wanted to be on some sort of path of ministry or service
mm,
in some capacity. But it wasn't until much later, I think I was like first grade or something, or a teacher had like a statue of just his Jesus's or Yeshua, whatever's like
mm.
top part. And I was like, who's that guy? And then they're like, oh, that's this guy. And then later I got a Bible at like 13. And so I'm not in the path of like the whole churchy
Mm.
religion thing as much as I am just like the spiritual aspects of like love and being good and kind and helping others. And,
Right.
I do believe there's some sort of creator,
Mm.
energy, something out there, or maybe it's off planet and they just came and seated. Or I don't know. What do you think?
Of just like Jesus Christ, or what do you mean? What's
And or
particular?
God, or is there someone like, what do you believe as far as spirituality?
Oh, yeah. 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 I mean, when I got into spirituality, I guess in my early 20s, and the first thing that, I guess as far as spirituality or spirit was like my higher self, like the concept of a higher self. And, in the beginning it was kind of vague, but that, as time went on, it became more apparent of like, oh, this is what the higher self is and getting in touch with it. And then as time went on, going beyond that and kind of, oh, wait, a God or a source or whatever you want to call it, and that becoming more apparent or real and just awakening to that. So yeah, those are when I think of spirit, well, I mean, that's everything, right? But I tend to think of like us having our higher selves and even just this greater source of everything. Yeah.
I agree. Yeah, because the kingdom of God is within, but I
Mhm.
know like people also have this like concept of like almost like a Santa Claus in the sky, or when they refer to
Ah,
God, they're like point up or look up or like it's some outside thing, which yes, I think God is outside, but I think God is also like in our very DNA and in our cells and in the essence of who we are and what we do and the
yeah.
energy of that. So it's like, how do you describe that?
No, yeah, it's hard to put words to spiritual experiences. Sometimes you're just like, I don't even know how to put this all together right now into a sentence that makes sense for people.
Absolutely.
Um, but yeah, yeah, the whole concept of within that resonates with me for sure. Um, I always, for me, it was kind of a um, real waking up and realizing, oh, I'm a spiritual being. I'm not my physical body. I'm this kind of immortal being that had, various past lives and so on. And then kind of waking up to the point of, oh, wait a second, perhaps I'm very much like Source, and maybe that's where the journey began. And so just the concept of just the journey as a soul, just from the origin point, going through all these, spiritual adventures and past lives and kind of where we're at now, I find very fascinating. So yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah, there's just layers upon layers upon layers, and everything's so interwoven. And I mean, oh my gosh, I have a lot of weird things that have happened that are just like, wow, that is so so many layers to that, so many depths to that. But
Yeah.
here we
Yeah. Do you find that you ever find that you like reach a point where you're like, oh, I have a great awareness of spirits, and then you soon after it's like, whoa, wait a second, there's so much more to even learn about this, and you're going deeper and deeper down the rabbit hole, so to speak.
are.
Do you find that at all?
Yeah, I think the older that I get, the more I realize I don't know anything. Like everything I thought I knew, I was maybe wrong or had like this much. And
Mhm.
when there's really. When people are asking me like, "Oh, well, what do you think about blah blah blah?" I was just like, "Well, right now,
Right.
I think la la la, but that could change in 15 minutes depending on more information or different perspectives or life experiences or
Right.
you know." Because there was definitely a time when I thought like even essential oils or crystals was like voodoo and the devil, or even the
Uh,
word witch was like bad. And it's like, well, is witch bad? I mean, they thought
mm,
that Joan of Arc was a witch and she got killed for it. And so it's like things just change over time. I guess I try to stay as loose
mhm.
is possible in my belief system or what I be alive in when I'm
Mm.
alive,
Yeah.
just because it's like if I can be fluid, I think my ego in the past wanted to be right and needed that security of like, oh no, this is the way it is, and don't touch that. Like that's like no. And
Yeah.
now people are like, you're wrong, or this is that or whatever. I'm just like, okay, you could think that, and we're cool, and
Mhm.
may not be there or I may be there, but everyone's on their journey.
Yeah. Yeah, it's always interesting to look back and kind of where we were at, and then the changes we go through, some of the limitations in our mind we let go, or the illusions, and then we're like, whoa, I'm in this whole new space, and just being able to reflect on, wow, how much I've changed, or just from whatever induced the growth to lead you to that new awareness is always pretty interesting.
Yeah,
Um,
I
yeah.
think I think sometimes I know for me, it's almost gotten to like almost a depression at times too, where it's like
Hmm.
you just found out like all
Oh.
this stuff that you thought was right is really wrong, and you're just like, what is real? Like I
Hmm.
was in that program for how long? And it's like wonder like, well, what else did I think that was right was really wrong? And that whole destructuring, deconstruction parts where you're just
Hmm.
like, no, don't touch that, please. That's keep that one at least. It's like, oh Lord.
Yeah. Like the house of cards start falling down, and you're just like, oh no, what's what's gonna come after this here? What am I gonna learn? And yeah, I find I don't know what your experience is, but you kind of mentioned sometimes almost depressing, but just the going through change and growth can be intense and really challenging. It always seems like it's rewarding on the other side, but that in between can sometimes be messy and uncomfortable and not always the easiest. Is that what you tend to find too throughout life, or?
Sometimes straight up pain. I
Yeah.
mean, sometimes pain or the death of something, whether it's
Mm,
like a marriage or an idea or a job or an animal or whatever it could
hmm
be. Like feeling like this is over when really could be a catalyst for something so
Yeah.
beautiful and big when we can kind of step back and look at the macro instead of just looking at the micro. I mean,
Right.
even I was diagnosed with cancer years ago in the
Mm,
past, and I was able to re-engineer that and reframe it and get back into balance and move
mm,
past it. And it was a catalyst for meeting a lot of new people and seeing a
mm,
lot of different ways of doing healthcare and biohacking,
mm,
engineering, and just an appreciation for life more.
hmm
And just looking at everything as like, wow, like that's been here this whole time, and I didn't even like give it attention or appreciate it or love it or
mm,
just so much gratitude about different things. And so one of the biggest teachers that we can have is having a really deadly diagnosis
mm.
or some kind of catastrophe, where again, like you said, when you're in the thick of it, it's just like, oh my
Yeah.
God, like, can I get through this? Like, will I survive? What? Crying, tears, whatever, death of a relationship,
hmm
I mean, there's so many twists and plot twists, and turns in life. And it's just like, wow, if we can, I try to just be like Bruce Lee says, like water, just
Oh,
do my,
yeah.
but I'm not always. So yeah.
Yeah, when you mentioned that, the Bruce Lee, it sounds like not being in resistance, just kind of letting things flow and be as they are. And it seems like that makes things a lot easier, but also it's sometimes we have a tendency to pump the brakes and resist, and that tends to make things harder.
Yeah.
Um, what helped you get through the cancer? Like what sounds like that was probably a big wake up call for you in life. How did you get through that, or what helped you heal and kind of move forward with that?
Oh gosh, I have literally a list of things.
Nice.
But yeah, I was juicing. I went ketogenic, so I did like a metabolic reset. I was doing so much biohacking. Red light therapy, PEMF, raindrop therapy, infrared sauna, lots of detoxing, liver cleanses, hyperbaric chamber,
Mm,
lots of oxygen, 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 ozone therapy.
mm,
And a lot of it was mindset. I was super in fear about death in general.
mm,
And I had to kind of reframe that and make a new choice.
mm,
I looked at my language and in my imagination, and I didn't have to, but I made the choice to see different outcomes
mm,
than what the doctors may have been saying were going to happen. Is like, you know what, I'm going to choose again. And then the discipline to hold that image and to keep
mm,
that conscious language of only voicing my choice.
mhm,
um, but I did a lot of biofeedback. I did vitamin C therapy. I mean, it was a full-time job.
mm,
Um, Completely re reliving, reliefing, changing, gears on like almost pretty much everything. But
wow.
yeah, there was a lot of things involved, a lot of moving parts
Yeah, it
that can
sounds like it.
go into that. And not everybody can do all those things, and not everybody wants to. And I've actually worked with people who did all the things, and then all the screens come back completely clear,
Mm,
and there's nothing showing that would lead them to a path of, transmuting. But because some doctor told them 6 months, 1 year, blah blah blah, like to the day,
mm,
they go, and it's like,
mm,
wow, there's so much power in words and belief systems that people
mm.
can still just check out, even though there's nothing physically wrong with them.
Right. Interesting. So it sounds like you had, because that's a lot of different modalities and ways you were kind of tackling that. Um, it seems like you had a lot of determination to like, um, hey, I really want to be here. Did you find that when you got through that, did you feel like you were more alive or present than previous, like in the earlier part of your life? Did anything change in that kind of way or?
I, I valued life a lot more.
Mm,
And I'll be honest with you, Robert Tennyson Stevens, who's now passed, he was a big part because I was doing all those things that I just said.
mm,
Then I was offered an invitation to go to this class called bio holography. Like iridology, but a little bit different.
mm,
And it was a week course in North Carolina, and I wasn't sure what to choose because I knew if I was gone a week, then I would be also not choosing the biofeedback and all the
mm,
thing, the daily grind of what I was doing physically. And I kept muscle testing, and it kept showing, go, go, go. So I go, and part of what we were learning and remembering is what eyes look like electronically.
mm,
And so he had like this picture that he took of my eyes up on the screen. There's like 40 people there. And he found four dots, and I think it was my right eye. And he's like, and I didn't know what that meant. And he was just like, I was the guinea pig that he was showing in front of everybody. And then he asked me this question, and he said, "When did you choose to die?"
mm.
And he didn't know what was going on.
Oh,
So
wow.
I said, what are you talking about? I was just like thinking, and I actually was kind of upset with him because
Mm,
I didn't like the accusation when I was sitting here doing all this work daily to
right.
be here. And I'm like, and so I literally said to him, I said, you wouldn't accuse me of that if you knew all the things I'm doing to stay here. Like,
Mm,
what's up with that? And then he was like, well, have you ever said things like, I'm done, cancel clear, or I'm so over this, cancel clear, or I
mm,
can't do this anymore, cancel clear,
mm,
or some of the very like normal culturally accepted phrases that we all say. And I was like, well, yeah, I mean, doesn't everybody say those things? And he was like, well, basically those four dots in your eye at the time, he called them death wishes.
mm,
And he said that they'll show in your eye when you've pretty much decided. And when you say things like that, the subconscious is very literal. So the literal subconscious goes, okay, and just starts getting the ball rolling in whatever we're saying, whether we
right.
think it means anything or not. And so
Interesting.
I was like, well, how do you fix all that? And he was like, I want you to, he said that cancer is the energy of I can't serve.
Mm,
And he said, I want you to say, I can and I am. And
mm,
so I was like, okay. So I'm like, I can and I am. And he's like, now say it again. And I was like, I can and I am. And he's like, say it slower like you really mean it. And I'm like, I can and I am. And he was like, now put your me into it. And I'm like, I can and I am. And anyway, as I'm repeating, 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 I'm like more emotional
mm,
saying it. And I was like, wow, this is kind of surprising me. And then
mm,
like tears started coming up. And then he's like, say it like your entire life depends on it.
mm,
And I was like, I can and I am. And like, I swear to God, all of a sudden I felt like discomfort
mhm,
in my lower region. And I was like, whoa, 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 whoa. I gotta go to the bathroom real quick.
mhm,
Go run to the bathroom, not to be TMI,
mm,
but so much stuff came out.
mm,
And I like look and I'm like, what is that? and I've had 7 miscarriages, but this was like unidentifiable.
Mm,
My left brain was like, "What is that?" My right brain was like, "Is that cancer?"
mm,
And I'm like, "Can it be that fast? Can that just happen?" Like I'm all this stuff's going through my head. So I remember I
mm,
had like a magnifying glass in my pocket from when we were looking at each other's eyes. And so I
mm,
hurry up and something told me, go look at your eye. So I run to the mirror. I'm still in the bathroom and I look, and all of those 4 points now had like this little kind of hook to them.
mm.
And I was like, oh my gosh, that literally wasn't there minutes, maybe 7 minutes at the top.
Yeah.
Uh, so I go run back and I'm like, Robert, oh my God, you will not believe what just came out of me. And he was like, he actually made a poop joke. And I was like, no, 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 nothing like that. And then I said, look at my eye. So he puts the screen on my eye and it showed up, and everyone can see the little
Mm,
hooks. And he said, you're reversing it. It's turning around. He said, those are healing hooks, or what else? He called it like a shepherd's hook or a
oh,
healing hook. And he said, you're reversing it.
mm,
You're reversing you. And I was still like, I think 4 days to go in that class.
mhm.
Mine was like, that didn't happen. That happened. That didn't happen. It's just like
Ah,
had
yeah, yeah.
discipline to be like, I already see me completely whole and stay. I am love and I stay. I am already divine health and I stay. And just like replace with like whatever OCD thoughts that I could hold and stay and like wanted to agree with my highest. Came
Mm.
home, saw 4 doctors. All of them were like, you're good.
Oh, wow.
And so, what is dis-ease? What is these conversion disorders that we sometimes pick up, emotionally, that start showing up in the physical body? And like, what is time? What is space?
Mm,
Can things happen instantly, or do we have to wait 6 weeks because someone said, like,
mm.
all of these things that we get to play around with in life?
Yeah. That's the fun part. That definitely sounds like a miracle to me. Is that what led you to writing that book, the Science of Miracles? Or
The Actually, the book came out of an encounter that I had in the late 2000s. I had these two beings show up in my living room, and a lot of things happened during that time.
mm,
And I remember coming out of it, and I was just like writing everything down as much as possible, graphs and charts and colors, and because I was so afraid this is going to go away and I won't remember this. And
right.
I ended up putting it in a book, and this is now it's a book. The Science of Miracles, Remembering the Frequency of Love.
Very cool. So you said two beings. Did you get a sense of your relationship to them or
I've been asked that. At the time, because of my programming, my language would have said angel.
hmm
Um, since then, I have second guessed that and not really honestly sure. I'm like, is this my higher future self that came back to talk to me?
mm,
Is this something off planet? Is this, angel just means messenger anyway. So it was
hmm
some type of messenger, where or what or who. There were two of them. Um, I asked in my mind, or I must have thought in my mind, like, who are you? And immediately she, the one that looked more like a girl, said true. And the other guy, what the other being was like a man looking more
mm,
masculine.
yeah.
Um, and he had more like almost like an Asian type look to
Mm,
him. And he said living. And so I've always referred to her as true and him as living since then. I've
mm,
never seen living since then again.
mm,
True has come to me several times when I was pregnant or when I was having a miscarriage or when there was
mm,
time to change a job, or she's just continued to show up. My practice here in Louisiana is actually called Living True Wellness, and
mm.
my podcast is Dr. Sharnael True TV, because
Mm.
she was such an impact and
Ah,
is
okay.
an impact with me of like the embodiment of what living true is, and like walking that out and not just thinking about it, not just talking about it, not just feeling it, but actually like living truth in every choice.
Yeah. That's challenging. It I guess what was your communication like with the two beings? Did it seem like it was like you were seeing them or you were hearing them? Like it was a combination of like perception? How did you perceive that?
Yeah, they were very, very tall,
Hmm.
or they are. I'm assuming they're still here. I really think they're here all the time, just maybe in a spectrum of light or dimension somewhere that I don't see all the time.
Hmm.
Um, for whatever reason, sometimes they kind of beam in, or she does, or out, or maybe I get to a place where I can see better. I
Mm,
choose to know. But they looked like light coming in and out really fast, like a
mm,
almost like blinking iridescent. Seemed really fast, but almost like in slow motion.
mm,
Um, the light colors were very iridescent, like kind of Easter, like pastel Easter colors,
mm.
like very kind of shimmery. Like this is an angel quartz, and this is to me what they look like. Is they have this
Oh, okay, yeah.
like different hues kind of show up,
Hmm.
different pinks and colors.
Yeah.
Um, but there was no noise, no sound. Um, there was no effort in having to talk.
Mm,
It was very, I would think something, and then my answer was there. Like they would
mm,
say something, and I could not only feel it, but on a feeling level, I was shaking very much.
mm,
I was terrified when I saw them,
mm.
and they knew it, and they were like, "It's cool, it's okay."
Right.
Um, but that didn't make everything calm down. I mean, I was very heightened,
Mm,
and when it was over, it took hours to just like not stop shaking. I was very
mm,
like, oh my god, what was that? Was that
mm.
made up? Was that a dream? Like, what the heck? And then I felt like almost like a, have you ever went like roller skating or been on a cruise or something, and then like you stop roller skating but you still feel like you're skating?
Oh yeah. Yeah, yeah.
Or like you've been on a boat, a long, long time, and then you get on land and you're like, I kind of feel like,
Yeah, like a roller coaster ride. That's you
yeah,
feel like you're on it. Yeah.
yeah. So
Yep.
I still feel that feeling when I talk about some of the things that she said, and or when I talk about her. But when I was there, man, it was like full on blast. It was I felt like it was like a tune up.
Mm.
Um, is the only way I could say. I was just like so much heightened, like an energy.
Yeah, yeah. Just a higher vibration and um so I guess do you have any you kind of shared some, but are there any other miracles that have happened to you in your life at any point, or maybe people that you've worked with that had miracles that come to mind that you'd like to share?
Yeah, I mean, gosh, I can share about one time we had a guy named. I mean, we could go so many different places. I by locations,
Mm,
finding lost items, like transporting items from one physical place to the other.
mm.
Interlays of relationships of like maybe soul families, or
Oh, yeah.
different things. But what's coming to mind as you're talking to me is a friend of mine had a son that passed at 6 months, and I've had seven miscarriages, like I said, but up to this point I had two.
Mm,
And there was a little girl that came to one of our meetings, and she would say that she saw dead people.
mm,
And this was a very religious, like Christian, like nothing against Christian, but I'm just saying, it was odd to find such acceptance in this child,
mm.
in her gifting. But she had had a near death experience, and then some things happened. And when she came back, it was like all of a sudden, like the veil was non existent. She could just see like kids and people who had passed and knew their names and how they died. And
Oh,
she
wow.
would relay this information to like her family, and they would like Google and look up and go, oh yeah, Michael died in a car accident 2 weeks ago on this so and so road. And she called his name
Uh,
and the address, and the name of the street and the color of the car, and it was crazy. So we had her come to teach, like in the kids group, and then
mm,
me and another guy were teaching, like I guess the night adult sessions,
mm,
and it was in another city. And right when I was about to walk out the door, I saw this painting on the wall that had brought me a lot of comfort for like 7 years, maybe 8 years. And it was just a picture of a kid, like a boy on this path in the forest, and he had this stick with like a handkerchief full of
mm.
stuff, like
Oh, yeah.
Andy Griffin kind of shit,
Mhm,
where you're like doo 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 walking in the forest, and there was like a ray of light on him. You could only see the back of him walking, and there were like angels on each side in this
mm,
picture. And at the bottom it said, "You are never alone."
mm,
Now, I had bought that painting for me when I was going through a really, really terrible time, and I just needed something to stare at, to like anchor in, like, I'm not alone, I'm not alone, I'm not alone, you're not alone. And something told me to take it with me, to put it in the car,
mm.
bring it to this meeting because I was going to have to give it away, and I did not want to give it away. And I was like, okay, I'm going to do it, and I don't really want to, but I'm going to do it. So I put it in the car. I was like, ah, because but we go, and then fast forward the first night of the meeting, I go to check on the kids while one of the speakers is speaking. And when I walk in, that little girl is there. She immediately sees me and she's like, "Oh, I love your kids." And I was like, "I didn't bring my kids with me."
Mm.
And she was like, "No, the two that are standing right next to you." And I was like, "What?" And so here, like my right brain is like, huh, and my left brain's like, okay, what are their names? What do they look like? It's like,
Yeah, yeah.
so so I said, okay, well, what are their names? And I was just, what am I going to do? So I'm trying to get information. So her
Mhm,
response is, well, one is named Shiloh,
mm.
and she kind of looks like Shane, which is my oldest daughter, and I've never told her any of these things. So this little 6 year old is telling me about my oldest daughter, and that this kid who she's seeing looks, anyway. And I had
Yeah.
named my first miscarriage daughter Shiloh. So I was like,
Oh.
oh my gosh. And then she says, and the second one looks more like your middle child. And she mentioned her name, and she said she has a really long, kind of hard name, but we just call her Sarah for short.
Mm,
Well, I had named my second miscarriage daughter Serafina,
mm,
and I call her Sarah. No one knew this. There's like, my husband is the only person who knew that I had named these babies.
mhm.
So I immediately am like, and I just start crying.
Yeah.
And then she says to me, "Oh, I forgot about the angels that bring the buckets of water, and they pour the healing waters over the mommies so their hearts will heal."
Mm,
So now I'm like on the floor, like literally just bawling. I'm trying to get my stuff together. I'm just like, oh, well, so
mm,
my friend Dana comes to mind. She's my best friend from high school, and
mm,
she's in the adult meeting, and she had lost her child at 6 years old. So I'm like, in my mind, I got to get Dana. So I go get Dana. I'm a mess, but
mhm,
I'm like, Dana, come back here. You have to meet this girl. You got to talk to her, like, da da da. I
mhm,
can't explain much. Just come on. So she comes in, and I introduce her to this little girl, and I'm like, hey, this is Dana. Do you see anything with her?
mm.
And she was like, well, yeah, I mean, her son is with her. And we're just like, what? And Dana's like, what? And she
Uh,
said, okay, well, what is his name? How old is he? And she said, well, his name is Ben,
mm,
which that was true. And she said, he's 16. Well, our heart sank a little bit because he wouldn't have been 16. He
mm,
wouldn't have been just maybe a few years old.
mm,
And so we were like, oh, okay, yeah, that's not him. That must be somebody else.
mm,
And then she comes back really quick, and she's like, no, they can pick whatever age they want to be once they go over there. And then she's like, oh, he wants me to tell you that he works in the forest, and that he really enjoys working in the forest like his dad. And we're both like, what? Because this girl didn't know, but Ben's dad worked for the forest wildlife and fishery.
oh.
and was like high in the ranks, working in the forest. And so we're like, okay, I'm listening.
Yeah.
And she's like, yeah, matter of fact, Ben plays with Shiloh and Serafina, and he just got them two new dogs to play with because your kids help with the animals in heaven.
Mm,
And I was like, what? And
mm,
I'm a big animal person.
mhm,
And my first thought was, oh, well, they're definitely German Shepherds. They're for sure 100% German Shepherds because that's my favorite dog. Dana's being blown away that he's picked a job that's like her dad's. And the girl explains, yeah, they like things like their parents. They try to do things to stay close to us.
mhm,
They like being named, blah, blah, blah. And so I said, well, are the dogs German Shepherds? And
mhm,
she's like, actually, no, they're Chihuahuas.
mm.
And I said, like those Taco Bell dogs? And she was like, yeah. And I'm like, no, 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 no. My kids wouldn't have, that's just weird. And
Mm,
then I had this like thought of a memory of 2 weeks prior. I was in the car going over this overpass with with their dad. And he leans over and says, I think I'm going to go get a Chihuahua.
mm.
And I was like, what? You don't even like Chihuahuas. Like, I've never heard you say that. And he was like, that's my favorite dog. And I was like, you've never told me that. Like those little purse dogs. And he's like, yeah. I'm like, yeah, whatever. And he never got one, but he just mentioned it even 2 weeks earlier.
Mm.
And she said, yeah, it was about 2 weeks ago. She just got the dog. She had no idea about any of this. So we're all just like totally freaking out. We make, we make it through the day. We make it through the night. We're now leaving the conference, going to our hotel. We go to the hotel. She's following me. I went to get my suitcase, open up the back part of the van, and there is this painting that's there with a kid about 16
Mm.
walking that way with a stick with his stuff
Uh,
and kids on both sides. And for the first time, I notice that his hair is red.
mm,
And he had just a little patch underneath his cap of his little hair sticking out. Well, Ben was a redheaded kid. And I'm
mm.
like, oh my God, Ben has been on my wall for 8 years, bringing me comfort as a 16-year-old image.
Right.
And now this is coming back to Dana to comfort her and what's going on with her.
Wow. Yeah, that's one of those mind-blowing moments where you, wow. That's a lot and all in one right there.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's
So
amazing.
just like literally, we're like, what? I was like, God told me to take this and to give it to you. I didn't know I was going to give it to you. And now it's like, it makes sense. It's just like how things don't make sense sometimes. And maybe just follow it because that's what you're supposed to do. And you'll find out later.
Yeah. Yep.
Hmm.
Yeah. So another question I have is, I'm sure people are if they're in spirituality, there's a fascination with miracles, and I'm sure maybe some people would like to have a miracle. They're wanting it, or maybe they feel at some point they like really need it to come through. Is there anything that comes to mind that you think is helpful for someone that, wow, I would really love to have a miracle, or man, I really need it now. I'm struggling and I need something to come through. Is there something that helps with that, the want and actually to the having the miracle?
Yes.
Mm,
That's a profound question. There's
mm,
so many moving parts even to that because it's not just, so everything is frequency.
hmm
We all have this biofield that's 4 or 5 feet average. Some people it's further away, but the language of our field has a lot to do with what we're thinking about, what we're talking about, and what we're feeling.
mm,
It also is an extension or a radiation of every cell in our body, the epigenetics, the ancient, genetics of our ancestors. Everything is again projecting out,
mm,
but we also have this magnet pull that comes back in, and
mm,
we only get what we are.
mm,
So if we can focus on what we choose and use our imagination, which is super powerful to create images or imagery and stay and hold into that. And also our conscious language, focus on the outcome that we choose, only voice your choice. You
Mm,
know, the word imagination is to image a nation. And
mm,
so we can use the technology of what we are to radiate the outcome we choose into the field, which can magnify that miracle to us.
mm,
And I kind of look at it like, I mean, it's a game in some ways. It's like, well, if you start attracting things to you that aren't your highest,
mhm.
then it gives us the opportunity to either be really pissed off and be like, okay, I resist that and I hate it, and then we get more because whatever thing we resist, we get more, right?
Mhm,
Or we could just be like, okay, thanks for showing me that that's still here. It sucks, but I'm going to go back to the drawing board and figure out what's projecting that to come to me. How did I create that? Why did
mm,
it come? So, because we're manifesting one way or another anyway. Like there's
right.
this torrent of electronics that are going out and in and out and in and out and in, like literally all day long. We're creating. So we're either going to create something with purpose as
Mm,
architects with conscious choice, or we could just not even realize that we're creating and just by default make up whatever comes to us
yeah.
based on whatever programming. I mean, it could be like grandma thought like shit never works for her and she tried to get a job and she failed, or grandpa did this, or your parents did that, and you saw all that. And then that was kind of like a belief system then. And so you think that that's for you too, or vice versa. You can overcome your past and create something new. And maybe you were brought up and just believing you can have anything, you can be anyone, and you have limited miracles at your fingertips at all time. You could bilocate, you could
Mm,
transport, you can bring things into your life that weren't there 2 seconds ago, you can heal your body, you can, you know, it's
yeah.
just whatever you think you can do, you can.
And for people that if they start to, reimagine new possibilities, um, is there something that's helpful when they're in that process of, okay, I'm aware of these things that not really kind of what I'm wanting, but hello. And then, okay, I'm going to imagine a brand new possibility. Is there something that's helpful, whether it's just like trusting, just going from, okay, that's not for me, but here's a new thing I'm trying to get to, like kind of being on the bridge and you're walking across the bridge. Like what do you find helpful in your experiences or working with people that helps them cross the bridge to that newer reality they're trying to create?
It takes trust for
Mm,
sure. And I always say, seek ye first the kingdom of God, and then all these things will be added to you. And where's the kingdom? For me, the kingdom is within.
right.
So if there's like some kind of thing in the back of your mind that's been like, do this, you got to do this. When you do this, well, like whether it's call your mom or go to the bank or pay that person back or
Mm,
get up and exercise or drink more water or whatever those voices are saying, it's like a Kleenex box. You got this box, and you only see one
mm,
sticking out, and you pull it, the next thing comes. You pull it, the next thing comes. But it's just that act of obedience. Seek ye first the kingdom, and then all these things will be added unto you. It doesn't say this will be added unto you if you don't ever seek the kingdom. I mean, like we
right.
get the answers when we just kind of rest and chill out and go like the answers are already here. Then you
Right.
know.
Right. Do you find that I know I experience this, or I don't know if you have, or the people you've worked with, where initially maybe we're looking outside of ourselves for the things we're wanting, or we're I need this, or my answer's somewhere out there, and then having to kind of come to the realization, like you're talking about this kingdom within, that it's right here, right now. Is that something that you've noticed in yourself or other people in the past?
Absolutely. It
Yeah.
is a chronic program for
Mm,
sure, to like this codependent dance that we can sometimes get caught up in of, seeking something on the outside when really the heart knows. So
mm,
it's like, well, what does my parents say? What does my best friend say? What does my sister say? What does my brother say? Or what does my spouse think? And, ultimately it's what does God and you say?
right.
What's your first words? Like when I'm working with people or coaching with people, I mean, I go through. what they call frequency hopping. And there's this whole, some of the graphs that I got like during that download is,
Mm,
we have these waves and then we have echo waves that come back and see like, where are we on the equations? Are there any negatives? If we
mm,
clear out the negatives, will we be more positive and we can go forward? Um, you know, other times I think that sometimes we can get stuck kind of like in an energetic purgatory where it's like we're thinking something positive and we're saying something positive, but we're still feeling like
uh,
not, it's never going to work. And so you have this like two steps forward, one step back energy,
mm,
because the equations basically cancel each other out. It's like maybe you have three positives, but you have two negatives. So it's like you got a
mm,
little traction, but not so much, like how
yeah.
do we get there? So it takes extreme discipline,
Mm,
replacing. So I know for me, when I was dealing with C, I don't even like saying the word,
mm,
I had just this fear of like, well, what about my kids and what about the money and how will my children survive without, I had to just say, stop. God is the only power and presence here. God is the only power and presence acting here. God is the only, and if anything to replace it, because my thoughts were going to be somewhere.
mhm,
So if I didn't give them any direction, they were going to take off on their own. So I had to make it where this is what I'm choosing to think on and dwell on, and had pictures, and I
mm,
brainwashed myself to constantly watching over and over and over about different people who had that C and then got better and got healing. And
mm,
I would just like watch it and watch it and watch it. So because I had heard, when you hear that word, a lot of people think, well, that's it, that's over, bye, and it's
right.
just a word. It's got a lot of energy to it. So I had to train myself that this is just an imbalance and we can shift this. And all we got to do is clear. And this is totally normal and everybody has it. And, like it's just about, is it turned on or turned off? And let's turn on the good things and turn off the bad things. And,
Mm,
just, but it took replacing, and it took a lot of discipline, because if we're trying to not think about pink elephants, guess what?
yeah.
Everyone's thinking about pink elephants. But if I say to you right now, I want you to think about the Statue of Liberty instead of pink elephants, like we
Mhm,
can decide, okay, I'm going to put this image before me and this is what I'm going to practice,
mm,
and then actually practice it. And then only talk about the Statue of Liberty, or only talk about being
mm,
already whole, or, you know, put post-it notes everywhere, put people in your life that are only going to see you healed. I didn't
mm,
tell anybody that I was sick.
mm,
There were very, very few people that I told, because I knew that they would be afraid, and they would just either look at me with, empathy or sadness, or
uh,
like agree with that. The only people that I knew that could know about it were the doctors I was working with,
mhm,
and they were all very positive. I chose very positive doctors who could see a good outcome, and friends that I knew believed in miracles, because I didn't
uh,
want anyone to have that like, well, this is it for you kind of energy at all. Like
right.
that, be completely clear of my timeline.
Mhm,
Like I only wanted positives.
yeah. That makes sense. You didn't want that reinforcing the negative beliefs being part of that at all. Um, I know we're running short of time. I feel like we could talk about so many more things here, but if people want to connect with you and learn more about what you offer, you want to speak to anything about some of the services you have or products and how they can get in touch with you.
Absolutely. Yes, sir. So drsharnael.com is drsharnael, like Israel. I have all kinds of things. I think if you go there, there's a pop up and you get like a free class or something on quantum
Mm,
connection to trauma and clearing trauma, to have science, like miracles, science formulas that can carry out and give you the highest outcome instead of some of the default programs we
uh,
get. And I kind of break that down. But I have biofeedback on this, on our schedule, I mean, on my website, and we could do that remote. Actually, you don't have to be in person.
mm,
If you guys are anywhere near me, I do see patients live, but most of my patients, I have about 15,000 patients that are online and just do
oh, wow.
telecalls. I do coaching. I can also listen for voice recognition patterns of maybe what isn't serving someone, and we can replace it and get the snag out so you can actually live a life of miracles.
Mm,
My books are on there. My podcast is on there. I'm on all the social medias and stuff. There's a lot of free stuff on my website.
mm.
um, I keep saying sorry about that, but yeah,
Ah, that's
I
great. That's okay.
love to talk with you guys for sure.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah, it sounds like you offer a lot. Yeah, I'll be sure to link that information below in the description as well, so you can easily get to that, check it out. Um, yeah, I just want to, is there anything you think we missed or anything you want to share before we make the conclusion here? Or
Well, I would just like to say thank you,
Hmm,
because in a world where there are a lot of choices out there, to put your senses on and your eyes on and your time in, like people like you and what you're doing with these platforms
hmm,
can go bring a lot more light and a lot more courage and a lot more hope, and give people the choice to watch something like this instead of something that's going to program them into something maybe a little not so much fun. So
right.
um, I love people who take their time and their resources and energy and creating a safe place like this for people to listen and talk and kind of play around with ideas. And
Mhm.
so your work and your mission is just beautiful. And from my heart to yours and your family, like, thank you so much for letting me be with you today and meeting you.
Yeah,
And thanks for your work and your service.
absolutely. Yeah, it was great to meet you, and yeah, I really appreciate those words and just your time here and sharing your experiences and your wisdom. So maybe we'll do it again in the future, but thank you. So
Yes, sir. Anytime. Appreciate you.
yeah, everyone, thank you for tuning in to this episode. We'll see you next time. Take care now.